Hello there, friends and neighbors. Thanks for coming back to my channel. This is me, Stella Hendricks, and today we are going to actually read a short little clip out of a magazine that I got some time ago. I'm pretty sure this is People magazine, but I can't really see any logos on here. And I'm not sure exactly of when this came out, except for the context. It mentions that Dorothy Stratten is dead, and that there's a new movie coming out. So it was sometime like very in the early 80s that this came out, and I think this is People. I'm not sure, but we're gonna read it together. I have not read this before. I'm just gonna read it we're gonna read it right now. This is a still grieving Bogdanovich lives in Bel Air luxury, but rarely goes out socially since his lover's murder. Haunted by a lost love, director Peter Bogdanovich pays tribute with a new film. They all laughed, assuming Hollywood history was merely repeating itself, when director Peter Bogdanovich took on Playboy Playmate of the Year Dorothy Stratten, then 19, as his new protege and girlfriend. In 1971, Bogdanovich had left his 2 kids and wife of 10 years to live with Sybil Shepherd, the blonde model he had discovered and used to decorate his breakthrough film, The Last Picture Show. By 1978, Sybil had traded Peter for marriage to a one-time Memphis auto dealer. Stratton, a former Dairy Queen waitress from Vancouver, seemed her logical successor. Gossip speculated that a smitten Bogdanovich, then 40, would use Stratton to revive his flagging career, just as Shepherd had helped launch it. Peter gave Dorothy a fat role in his $8.6 million romantic comedy They All Laughed, co-starring Audrey Hepburn, Ben Gazzara, and John Ritter. During filming, Peter and Dorothy fell in love. It was kind of before then, but yeah. Soon after, no one was laughing. Dorothy had asked for a separation from her husband of a year, Paul Snyder, 29, a small-time promoter who originally sent her nude photos to Playboy. Enraged by Dorothy's affair, Snyder killed her with a 12-gauge shotgun blast to the face before turning the weapon on himself. The murder-suicide took place August 14, 1980, 1 month after the movie had wrapped. Bogdanovich withdrew behind the iron gates of his lavish Bel Air estate, which has a film lab, a projection room, and a staff of 19. To finish editing, They All Laughed. The film was my salvation, my record of Dorothy, he says now. It showed her beauty, her luminousness, her promise. To the surprise of some, the promise was genuine. Though the movie's reviews were mixed, Stratten has won wide praise for her role as continued. In 1980, Bogdanovich playfully coached John Ritter on his love scenes with Playboy Playmate Stratton, and They All Laughed. 6 months after Dorothy celebrated her 20th birthday, Paul Snyder killed her and then himself with a shotgun. What a loser. Okay. It's just a corn advertisement. That Dorothy won wide praise for her role as a married woman who falls for a bumbling detective played by Ritter. The part was me, in a way, says Bogdanovich. Ritter agrees that the film mirrored reality. She and Peter were in love, and she was very circumspect about it until she could manage a divorce. Bogdanovich regards the movie as his tribute to Stratton. When 20th Century Fox's plans for distributing the film seemed inadequate, he committed $1 million of his own money to buy the negative and do the job himself. Dorothy was the finest, kindest, most decent human being I've ever known, lauds Peter. who says he was ignorant and unkind before meeting her. She made me change for the better. Oh, by the way, this is Sybil Shepherd. His first little girly. Bogdanovich is outraged that some have seen his sentiments as exploitation, even though Stratten has become something of a Hollywood midi industry since her death. Playboy ran a long exculpatory article about her murder. Did they? When? I want to read it. Director Bob Fosse is planning a movie based on reporter Teresa Carpenter's story about the crime in The Village Voice, which helped win her a 1981 Pulitzer Prize. Jamie Lee Curtis and Bruce Weitz starred in a quickie TV bio, Death of a Centerfold. I actually like Jamie Lee Curtis as Dorothy Stratten better than I like Mariel Hemingway. Just my opinion. Jamie is tough. Dorothy was soft and sweet, says Bogdanovich. And he has written a letter demanding a look at Fosse's script before production. He's such an ass. No one knows anything at all about it except me and her family, says Peter, who has begun writing a personal reminiscence of Dorothy, which Mara will publish in the spring of 1983. When the film wrapped, we went to London for 2 weeks. It was her first trip abroad. We were planning our marriage. 2 weeks later, she was dead. Since then, Bogdanovich seldom goes out. I'm a widower. I don't do much of anything, he says. At times, however, Bogdanovich's grief borders on melodrama. Oh, come on now, everyone's grief does. That's not very nice. When asked who can understand his vacillating moods, Peter says softly, Dorothy, only Dorothy. Could the 20-year-old really have had such depth? He explodes. What a stupid, insensitive thing to say. No one understands. They met at Hugh Hefner's mansion when Bogdanovich was at a low ebb. So talking about Sybil here, he says, I almost ruined her career, says Peter of Sybil Shepherd above in 1977. They're still phone pals despite Sybil's marriage. That's a funny similarity between Bogdanovich and Hugh Hefner, that they sure went through a lot of ladies, but generally stayed friends with them afterwards. I think every single girl in They All Laughed, except for Audrey Hepburn, was at one point or another getting banged by Peter Bogdanovich, but they all stayed pretty friendly afterwards, so, hey, if you're happy, I'm happy. Actually, okay, just a little bit left. The son of an immigrant Yugoslavian father and an Austrian mother, he had become one of Hollywood's young geniuses, but his later movies, like Daisy Miller and At Long Last Love, were flops. Sybil Shepherd had left him and his mother had just died. I'm sure I had preconceived ideas about Hef's playmates, Bogdanovich remembers, but Dorothy was very spiritual, very deep. Yeah, because, you know, you can't be sexy and spiritual and deep. I hate Peter Bogdanovich. I'm sorry. Okay. Everything out in clear, just so we know, Stella has a bias here, 100% against Peter Bogdanovich. Dorothy was very spiritual, very deep. I was arrogant, but she showed me a different way. Now I just keep getting angrier, states Peter, who says he has read the Bible, Freud, Jung, Bacon, Sophocles, and mythology, seeking analogies to Dorothy's death. I've tried to make sense. Bogdanovich refuses to see a psychiatrist. What I think is nobody's business, he snaps. With the help of his crew, he's planning on 2 new films. I'll Remember April, a comic ghost story set in France, and Paradise Road about Las Vegas. But right now, work doesn't seem to be enough, he says. I don't know if I can ever love as totally as I love Dorothy, he says. I'm still a hopeless romantic. Without that, there's just emptiness. Written by Sue Riley. I just hang around with people I do pictures with, says Peter, and chairing a staff meeting at home. With his cat, Karaduin. I think that's the one that he says, that's the cat that came to his house a couple days after, maybe it was a couple weeks, a little while after Dorothy died, and he felt like it was like a familiar spirit of Dorothy's or something, that it was a sign from her that she was reaching out to him. Anyway. Who am I to say that that's not the case? It well could be. So, I'm going to find more articles like this, things discussing my different starlets and harlots. Star Stowe is one of my favorite. Dorothy Stratten is a big favorite. But I think it's interesting to get articles from back then and just sort of review that information. And the more you get little snippets like that, the more you can put all the pieces together and see the picture as a whole. I think you get a better feel for the story, and especially these articles that were coming out when all of this was current news. So I think that's really interesting. So thank you so much for joining me for this reading of this mysterious magazine article. I think we're probably just going to call it Haunted by a Lost Love article. And if anybody can help me out on identifying this particular publication, that would be appreciated. All right, thank you so much, friends and neighbors, and I will catch you on the flip side.